Judge denies grandmother custody of her grandson after the boy's father dies in a fatal accident. The bailiff gripped Gary's arm firmly while Judge Michael, a juvenile court judge, read, without looking up, the order granting the boy's immediate custody to Elizabeth, his biological mother. "I'm right here. I'm his grandmother. Please, listen to me," begged Caroline, her voice torn. "Order in the court." "The decision has been issued and will be carried out now," Michael said, curt, eyes fixed on the paper. "You heard him, kid. You're coming with me now," ordered Elizabeth, extending her hand with her car keys already between her fingers. "He doesn't want to go with you. Give him a minute to breathe," pleaded Caroline through tears, stepping forward. "Return to your seat, ma'am," the bailiff warned, icy. "You always get exactly what you want, don't you? Just like a bitter old woman who never knew her place," Elizabeth taunted, with a crooked smile, smoothing her hair like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Grandma, please, let me stay with you," sobbed Gary, voice breaking as he looked over his shoulder. "Don't do this, please, he's terrified," Caroline implored, hands clasped. The courthouse security guard stepped between Caroline and the door, blocking her when she tried to move. "Enough drama, old lady. He's my son, and he's coming with me," Elizabeth said coldly, tugging Gary like she was dragging property. "This hearing is adjourned. Everyone out," Judge Michael declared, slapping the order on the desk as if it were just another document. "If you insist, I'll have to escort you outside," the guard warned, arm out to hold the line. "That won't be necessary. I got the message," Caroline answered, eyes burning with anger. "Move, Gary." "Don't make me lose my patience," Elizabeth demanded, yanking the boy's arm hard without looking back. Caroline stood trembling, staring at Michael in silence long enough for the hallway noise to fade. "This won't end here," she said under her breath, steady, as if etching a promise in the air. Outside the building, Caroline drew a long breath and wiped her face with the back of her hand, trying to get her thoughts in order. "You're Caroline, Gary's grandmother, right? I'm Lucy, the social worker assigned to the case," a woman said softly as she approached. "That's me, and I can't make sense of how this happened," Caroline replied, wary. "Something's off, Caroline. My report recommending caution disappeared from the case file," Lucy explained, carefully contained worry in her voice. "Disappeared how?" Caroline asked, startled and indignant. "I filed it properly. And another thing, this ruling came out ahead of the usual timeline," Lucy said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Are you saying there was fraud?" Caroline asked, hope and fear tangled together. "I'm not saying that. I'm saying decisions this fast are never neutral," Lucy answered with controlled seriousness. "So what do? I can't just stand by and watch my grandson be taken like this," Caroline said, her voice shaking. "I can't change anything alone, but I can help quietly so you're not isolated," Lucy promised, firm. Caroline nodded, took another breath, and decided she wouldn't go home empty-handed. "I'm going back now to ask how to request a review," Caroline said, determination returning. "I'll meet you there if you need me to confirm that my report vanished," Lucy offered, ready to move. Caroline returned to the courthouse and was told there was still a chance to overturn the decision. They told her to gather evidence: Lucy's new report, school records, witnesses, and her grandson's belongings to show his routine with his grandmother. With that list in mind, she left the building and went straight to the apartment of her late son, Stephen, Gary's father, to collect clothes, notebooks, and books as evidence of the boy's routine and to make sure he wouldn't miss school. "I need to go up and get my grandson's clothes and books," Caroline told the doorman when she reached the lobby. "Look, I've been instructed to avoid any movement in the apartment because of the case," the doorman answered, hesitant. "I'm the mother of the man who lived here. I just want to pick up what my grandson needs for school," Caroline explained, trying to stay composed. "I know you. I'm Sarah, the next-door neighbor of the deceased." "I can go with you and make sure everything's fine," said Sarah, approaching with respect. "If the neighbor accompanies you, I'll allow you to go up," the doorman decided, relieved to have a safe solution. Stephen's apartment was silent. Caroline took a breath before pushing open the door to her grandson's room, where his uniforms and notebooks were. "I'll fold the uniforms and sort the notebooks. Tell me if you need anything else," Sarah said, clearing space on the bed. "Thank you." "He needs to feel like nothing's been taken from him," Caroline answered, carefully picking up the first notebook. As they packed, conversation came naturally. Elizabeth's relationship with Stephen had been in ruins for a long time. "Constant fights and distrust," Sarah murmured. "I knew they fought, but not everything. I do know that months ago Stephen found out Elizabeth had cheated," Caroline revealed, tucking away a pair of socks. "Cheating? That explains how things finally broke," Sarah observed, folding a uniform. "After that, he wouldn't talk. He kept it to himself, and I couldn't get anything out of him," Caroline said, swallowing dryness in her throat. "The night of the accident, Elizabeth showed up here to argue with Stephen," Sarah recounted, glancing at the door like she could see it happening again. "Did you hear what they said?" Caroline asked, tense, pausing with a stack of books in her hands. "I heard raised voices in the hallway, but I couldn't make it out. I saw Stephen rush out on his motorcycle, and Elizabeth's car took off right behind him," Sarah said, sincere. "That hurts to hear, but it helps me understand the danger he was in," Caroline said, returning to the notebooks. With the boxes ready, Caroline went down with Sarah and thanked the doorman, who opened the gate discreetly. Caroline arrived at the school with the boxes to drop off her grandson's things and found Lucy waiting at the entrance to accompany her. "Let's talk to administration and log that you're providing his materials," Lucy suggested, guiding her down the hallway. "I'm Stella, the school coordinator. Tell me how I can help," said a woman, introducing herself as she welcomed them into her office. "I'm delivering my grandson's uniforms and notebooks so he won't miss class," Caroline explained, setting the box on the desk. "That's important for him. I'll call his mother to come pick them up," Stella assured, reaching for a form. "Then I'll wait. That way I can see my grandson, even for a couple of minutes," Caroline said, taking a seat. A few tense minutes passed until hurried footsteps echoed in the hall. "What a lovely scene! The grandma trying to play mom in my place," Elizabeth sneered from the doorway, a venomous smile on her face. "I'm doing what he needs, that's all," Caroline answered, keeping her hands visible to avoid any accusations. "Speak up, Gary. Who really takes care of you?" Elizabeth demanded, grabbing the boy's arm in front of Stella. "Give me a second to talk to my grandma," Gary pleaded, nervous, looking at Caroline with words stuck in his throat. "You're not saying anything to her. Answer me now," Elizabeth snapped, squeezing the boy's arm tighter. "Let his arm go. You're crossing the line," Lucy intervened firmly, stepping closer. "Mind your own business. I don't need your permission to take care of my son," Elizabeth shot back, chin lifted in defiance. "I'm documenting this right now, the scene and the students' distress," Stella said, already writing fast. "Write down that I'm taking care of my son, despite the interference," Elizabeth mocked, still gripping the boy. "Write down that she's pushing him to speak under pressure," Caroline said without raising her voice. "I'm going to describe exactly what I'm seeing. Pressure, distress, and the grandmother delivering school materials," Stella clarified, matter of fact. "I just want to talk to my grandma, please," Gary murmured, almost a whisper, trying to pull his arm free. "You're coming with me now. Show's over," Elizabeth ordered, loosening her grip only to pull him toward the door. "You're not above the rules. This is going in the case file," Lucy warned, pointing to the document. "File whatever you want. Custody is mine," Elizabeth growled, marching out. Stella handed Caroline the receipt, and Caroline held that paper like solid ground in the middle of a landslide. With the school records and Lucy's promise to formalize her updated report, Caroline went back to the courthouse and submitted the paperwork. The request for reconsideration was filed quickly. She left through the side street, documents in her bag, and stopped to breathe before moving on. That's when she noticed a car idling with the window down and recognized Elizabeth in the driver's seat, scrolling on her phone like she was waiting for someone. "This can't be," Caroline whispered, stepping back into the shade. She saw Judge Michael hurry toward the car, look around, and stop by the driver's door. Elizabeth got out, glanced around as if to confirm there were no witnesses, and leaned in for a long kiss with Michael. It lasted long enough for Caroline's trembling hands to get her phone out and snap a clear photo. After the kiss, Michael slid behind the wheel, and Elizabeth got in on the other side. The car sped off and vanished around the corner. "This changes everything," Caroline said to herself, pocketing her phone like it was a lifeline. Caroline headed straight to the service center where Lucy worked and asked to be seen immediately. "Come in, Caroline. What happened?" Lucy asked, closing the door quickly and pulling a chair close. "I photographed Michael and Elizabeth together outside the courthouse," Caroline explained, voice low and urgent, handing over her phone. Lucy stared at the screen in silence for a few seconds before answering. "This is big, Caroline. We can't pretend it's not," she said, marking each word. "I'm afraid I'll become a target if I submit this under my name," Caroline admitted, biting her lip. "But I won't give up on my grandson. You won't be alone. I'll file the photo with my updated report and the school record under my name," Lucy said, already outlining the steps. "Are you sure you want to take this on for me?" Caroline asked, gratitude and worry mixing. "I am, because it's the right thing. I'll keep you posted on every move, filing, response or hearing. If anything changes, you'll be the first to know," Lucy replied, steadying Caroline with a hand on her shoulder. Days went by until the phone rang early, and Caroline answered with her heart racing before she could help it. "Caroline, it's me, Lucy." "The response came faster than I expected," Lucy announced, voice firm with a thread of urgency. "Tell me what happened, please," Caroline said, bracing herself against the kitchen table. "They've opened an investigation into Michael, and he's been removed from the case for now," Lucy said bluntly. "Finally, someone did something," Caroline said, letting out a sob of relief and anger. "And there's more. A new judge has taken over and set an emergency hearing," Lucy added, sending over a photo of the document. At the courthouse, a clerk from the judge's office called Caroline in. She was told the order granting Elizabeth custody had been suspended and that temporary custody was being granted to Caroline, based on the prior case record documenting the mother's instability and the grandmother's steady support. The judge signed the order and informed her that police would enforce it immediately, bringing Gary to Caroline's home. She left with her heart pounding, feeling, for the first time, that someone had heard her voice. Hours later, a patrol car pulled up in front of Caroline's gate. "I'm a detective with the precinct. We're here to serve the court's temporary custody order," the officer explained, opening the back door. "Grandma," Gary murmured, climbing out slowly, backpack hugged to his chest like a shield. "Come here, sweetheart, come here," Caroline said, opening her arms until he crossed the gate and threw himself into her. "I thought I'd never come back," Gary confessed, voice trembling with relief and fear mixed together. "You're home now, and safe. Our fight isn't over, but you're not alone," Caroline said, stroking his hair. The calm didn't last. A car screeched to a stop, and a fist pounded the gate in visible fury. "Open this door now, Caroline. This is all a setup. You've always poisoned my son against me," Elizabeth shouted, livid, breathing hard. "You're not coming in." "There's a court order, and you know it," Caroline answered, steady, keeping Gary behind her. "I demand to see him now. I'll settle this my way. I don't need any judge," Elizabeth threatened, pounding the gate harder. "If you keep threatening, I'm calling the police right now," Lucy said, stepping up with her phone in hand. "Call whoever you want. No one is taking him from me," Elizabeth shot back, eyes darting aggressively. "Go home, Elizabeth." "Don't make a scene on the street," advised a neighbor, approaching cautiously. "Stay out of this, lady. You don't run anything here," Elizabeth snapped, waving her off like a fly. "All I see is a mother yelling and a scared boy," the neighbor said firmly, arms crossed in disapproval. "You love this theater, don't you, Caroline? This won't end like this," Elizabeth declared, giving the gate one last punch before storming back to her car. "Lock the gate and stay close to me," Caroline told Gary gently. "I was scared she'd smash everything," Gary admitted, clutching his backpack tighter. "She doesn't run this house. You're protected here," Caroline said, trying to calm her own heartbeat. In the days that followed, Caroline lived by the school schedule, arriving early, waiting by the door, and taking her grandson home, Lucy almost always nearby. One late afternoon, when she arrived to pick him up, the empty courtyard made her uneasy. She went to find the administrator. "Where's my grandson? He should be waiting under the covered area," Caroline asked, eyes wide. "Caroline, I saw Elizabeth earlier. She came and took Gary without authorization," Stella explained, genuine shock on her face. "You're telling me she took him from here without permission?" Caroline asked, voice breaking with fear. "I tried to stop her." "I called you, but it went straight to voicemail. She left fast, pulling him along," Stella said, distressed. "I'm not wasting time arguing. I'm going to the police station right now," Caroline said, pulling out her phone. "Lucy, she took him. She took him without permission," Caroline said into the phone, words tumbling. "I'm on the street. Meet me at the precinct now," Lucy answered without hesitation, urgency in her voice. At the station, Caroline and Lucy filed a report immediately. The clerk gathered the temporary custody documents, alerted the search units, and marked the case as a priority. The next hours were suffocating. Caroline paced without sitting, while Lucy kept her on her feet with small words of support. The night crawled until the door swung open in a sudden, decisive movement. Detective Christian received word that traffic cameras had spotted Elizabeth's car in another town. Patrols were dispatched at once and sealed the exits from the area. Minutes later came the update. She had stopped at a gas station and was surrounded by officers. The final confirmation brought relief. Gary was pulled from the back seat, trembling but unharmed. A few hours later, 2 officers walked into the precinct with Elizabeth in handcuffs, face set like stone. "I didn't do anything. This is harassment," Elizabeth declared, even before sitting down, pride forced to keep its pose. "You crossed a very serious line," Lucy said, unwavering. "I want to see my son. You can't stop me," Elizabeth insisted, starting to rise. "Sit down, Elizabeth. You'll speak when it's time," Christian said, indicating the chair in the interview room. Gary came in next, clinging to his backpack, eyes searching for Caroline first and only. "I'm here. I'm not leaving your side," Caroline said, making room for him next to her. "Are you okay?" Lucy asked gently. "I'm scared, but I'm okay," Gary replied, breathing shallow, glancing at Elizabeth. The questioning began, slicing through the haze of contradictions. "Elizabeth, years ago you gave up custody during the dispute with Stephen. Why this obsession now?" Christian asked, direct, without raising his voice. "Because I changed my mind. He's my son," Elizabeth answered, stubbornness like armor. "You ignored a court order and took the boy from school. That's not a change of mind. That's a crime," the station clerk stated, recording every word. "I don't owe you any explanations," Elizabeth retorted, eyes dropping to the floor for a second. "Yes, you do, and you will," Christian said, leaning just enough to weigh each syllable. The room went hard quiet. Gary broke it, looking first at Caroline and then at Lucy, like asking permission to step out of hiding. "Can I talk now?" Gary asked, voice low but steady enough to be heard. "You can, Gary. We're right here with you," Lucy answered, holding Caroline's hand like a double shield. I kept quiet because she always threatened me not to tell what I knew, especially about my grandma, Gary said, eyes on the table. You don't know anything. Shut up, Elizabeth hissed, trying to rise in her cuffs, marking territory. You will not interrupt him, Christian warned, authority nailing Elizabeth to the floor. The night of the accident, after my parents argued, I heard my mom threatening my dad, Gary continued, swallowing hard before staring into the middle distance. What threat did you hear? The clerk asked, pen poised. She said he knew about her secret relationship with the judge and that he was going to expose everything, Gary said, each word heavy as stone. You're making this up, kid, Elizabeth spat, trying to laugh and choking on her own nerve. I'm not making it up. I was in the living room. I heard both of them, Gary said, now looking straight at Christian. And what happened after that? Christian asked, giving the memory room to breathe. My dad rushed out to get his motorcycle and said he'd be back soon. My mum got in her car and tore off after him, Gary said, fingers squeezing his backpack strap. And then, Lucy encouraged, her tone bracing without pushing. She came back alone, looked at me and said my dad wasn't coming back. She told me to forget what I'd seen, for my grandma's sake, Gary revealed, voice splitting in two. You kept quiet because you were afraid something would happen to Caroline, right? Christian asked, locking in the pieces. Yes, she said she'd find a way to keep me close to control me, Gary answered, breathing heavier. Elizabeth, do you stand by your story, or do you have something to add? Christian asked, turning to her with a question heavy as a door. I'm not saying a word without my attorney, Elizabeth replied, but her voice wasn't as strong as before. Then I'm going to confront you with your son's statement and the evidence already gathered, Christian said, sliding the file across the table. Silence stretched longer than it was, and Elizabeth's mask cracked with a visible fissure. I chased him that night, Elizabeth admitted, at first like testing a forbidden sound. You chased him. We need the details, the clerk said to the investigators, recording every word. I went after Stephen because he threatened to expose me and Michael. I forced the collision and then, Elizabeth said, swallowing her words. And then, Christian pressed, steady. Then I called Michael. He fixed things to make it look like just an accident, Elizabeth confessed, closing her eyes a moment like falling down a well. You used the boy's custody to keep him under watch and quiet, didn't you? Lucy asked, her hardness born of protection. I had to control what he could say. When I lost control, I went to the school to get him, Elizabeth admitted, crumbling piece by piece. Based on this, there's enough to order your immediate arrest, Christian declared, standing to signal the team. Can I go home with my grandson? Caroline asked, small-voiced, like she'd just come out of a tunnel. Yes, he's going with you. A patrol car will escort you to your door, Christian assured, giving the room some air back. A few hours later, Michael was also arrested and placed in temporary custody. He and Elizabeth remained detained until trial months later, when the sentence came down: 10 years in prison for Michael for tampering and cover-up, and 12 years for Elizabeth for stalking, kidnapping, and her role in Stephen's death. With the guilty convicted and her grandson safe at home, Caroline finally breathed in peace, certain that the truth had prevailed. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.